Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. If you missed my announcement in the last video, I have opened a second channel for gameplays and other gaming related videos. If you want to check out what other content I am creating, subscribe to my second channel. Link will be in the description below. Also, with regards to the topic of today's video, keep in mind that this will only focus on the lore side of the Yevon religion as it appears in the game. While there is a lot of symbolism and meaning behind its creation, we can explore that in an entirely different video as I don't want to make this too long. So without further ado, let us begin. When sin first emerged and ravaged the world of Spira 1,000 years ago, the people were left without hope. While it was not documented, it is likely that the Machina cities of the time have made attempts to destroy sin when it emerged, but to no success. Sin was simply too powerful a creature to be destroyed. It takes a tremendously powerful being to put an entire world's population into fear and disarray, and sin most certainly fits this criteria. Using this exact fear and disarray, a group of people, mainly those who were of authoritative status in ancient Bavel, created a form of crowd control that served as Spira's main form of governance for a significant part of its timeline. Enter the Yevon religion. This served as the de facto ruling body of Spira for the next millennia, uncontested as the fear of sin ensured that the people would follow the Yevon religion, as without sin, the group would fall into disarray. So in today's lore video, we will take a look at the ruling body of Spira known as the Yevon religion. The roots of the religion rose during a time where the only person who had defeated sin was Yunalesca, yet it returned and continued to cause destruction across Spira. Due to the lack of successors to Yunalesca, it created a cloud of despair amongst the population and that they would be living in constant fear under the shadow of sin, and that it was indestructible. This fear lasted for 200 years after her defeat of sin until the Yevon religion arose. Interesting fact, however, it appeared that Yunalesca had no knowledge and therefore no input in the creation and the structure of Yevon as a religion, and did not know until summoners came to her asking for the final Aeon. One of the prominent points of the Yevon religion is known as the Summoner's Pilgrimage, where summoners would travel through Spira to each of the temples stationed at the time to obtain their respective Aeons, eventually working their way to the Zanarkand ruins, where they would obtain the final Aeon through Yunalesca. With the final Aeon, they would be able to defeat sin, but at the cost of the life of the summoner, as well as the final Aeon becoming the new core of sin, allowing it to live on. Upon realizing that she had become the center point of a prominent feature of the Summoner's Pilgrimage, Yunalesca did not resist, but instead continued to play along with the act, seeing the religion honored her father's name despite not knowing the true nature of the final summoning and sin. Now, the people who created this religion had set up policies in place with the hope that if the population of Spira had atoned for its sins, then the being itself would disappear one day. But the leaders of the religion knew better. They were aware that sin would not be defeated, knowing that Yunalesca's actions through the final summoning only calmed the beast, eventually coming back after some time. It is very likely that those who created the religion wished to use it to further their own agendas. In order to see this further, let us look at a couple of their policies. First, as stated earlier, atoning for one's sins would make sin vanish one day. This is an endless loop in order to keep people in order and believing in the Yevon religion, as there is no other force strong enough to resist its influence, and anyone who did would be branded a traitor to the religion and thus most of the population of Spira. This was done in order to isolate the Albed, the descendants of the Bedor who produced the technology and machina of Spira's past, and thus were scapegoats when the religion needed to place blame on someone for the result of the war. History has dictated, both in-game lore and real-life events and depicted in various media, when there is this much power in one body or council, there will be those who seek to use it to further their own agenda. While we do not see too much of it in Yevon's past, we see a lot of it in the events of Final Fantasy X through the motives of Seymour Guado. Throughout all the years that Yevon has existed, it has become a rather powerful organization. This has been the de facto governing body of Spira despite not being involved in any town or city affairs, which they leave to their respective rulers, but its power allows it to have a lot of influence in such events. When we look at how Yevon is structured, there are many similarities to religions in the real world. Starting at the top, Yevon is governed by a Grand Maester, similar to that of the Pope in Catholic religion. There are temples stationed at many of the towns and cities that dot Spira's geography, serving as representatives to Yevon to maintain influence, as well as housing faith statues for summoners to obtain their respective Aeons during their pilgrimages. It is likely that these same temples are not the same in the past, as we see evidence of temples that have been lost through time, such as Remium Temple and Baj Temple, which likely would have also housed faith statues for summoners in ancient Spira to obtain in order to complete their pilgrimage. Below the Grand Maester, there are 3 other Maesters, each with their own specific role. Looking at the Ultimania Omega translation for Final Fantasy X, it is revealed what those roles are in the game. Maester Micah serves as the Grand Maester, overlooking the entirety of the temples and whom the 3 other Maesters report to. Seymour serves as the Minister of Temple Affairs, which ensures that the rituals and teachings from the temples are maintained, including the summoners growing on their pilgrimages. With control over the temples, they have the ability to seal any records and histories if they so choose. While we do not see explicit examples of this, it is likely that his journey to Makalania Temple, despite waiting for Yuna's answer to marry him, was due to his obligation as the temple minister. Kelkronso serves as the Minister of Civil Affairs, which overlooked the civil government aspect of Yevon, including the judiciary and treasury along with any civil engagement. Our biggest example of Kelkronso's work was his leading the trial of Yuna when she was charged with the murder of Maester Seymour. And lastly, Wen Kinok is the Minister of Military Affairs. As the name implies, he is in charge of all the military in Spira and their activities. This includes the Crusaders, any monks enlisted in Yevon, and any private squads he may create, such example being the Crimson Squad sent to investigate the Cave of Woe. However, the biggest example of such an engagement of this role is Operation Mihen, where Kinok overlooks the army of the Crusaders and the Albed as they do battle with Sin, as well as leading the defense of Bevel as they are invaded by the Albed airship during the wedding of Yuna and Seymour. Below them are many roles within the clergy, such as high priests who are in charge of a single temple, as well as priests, nuns, and deacons who aid them, similar to that of the Catholic religion. The symbol of prayer in the religion starts with both hands spreading out to each side and eventually coming together to the chest, creating a circular form as if they were holding something round like a sphere or a blitzball and then bowing. In fact, this particular prayer was familiar to Titus as he saw it as a blitzball ritual sign for victory. It is very likely that the prayer evolved from that motion. While Yevon is not one to impose taxes as they are not considered a government but only religious faith by face, they managed to raise funds by donations from the general population, which is a relatively easy task when nearly all of Spira believe in the faith of Yevon, otherwise known as Yevonites. Despite not having a history of people resisting to the faith, there are those who did not believe in its teachings and are skeptical of them, the most famous being the Albed, who have had a rivalry with Yevon for 1,000 years, likely stemming to them being blamed for the downfall of Zanarkand and the rise of Sin. Unfortunately, due to the influence of Yevon, the majority of the people have sided with Yevon. Despite this rivalry between the two, the appearance of Yuna and her guardians and their journey to defeat Sin, with support from the Albed and adversary from Yevon, particularly Seymour, they were able to defeat Sin without the teachings from Yevon and ultimately shattered the people's faith, with many losing respect for the Yevon religion for their ineffective methods, loosening a 1,000-year-long iron grip in the fears and hopes of the people of Spira. Whew, that was a lot to cover. Understandable considering Yevon is a major element in the story of Spira, and without it, Final Fantasy X would be a completely different story. Maybe an idea for an alternate timeline video. Let me know what you all think of Yevon and how it was implemented into the story of Final Fantasy X, and comment below if I missed anything throughout this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe to the channel, as well as my second channel where I post general gameplay videos and anything gaming related. And be sure to turn on post notifications for both. I will have links to it plus my Discord below if you want to join. Other than that, this is Enzo signing out, and that, as they say, is that.